for being here, Levi.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And this is Chi Chats, where we unpack the human experience. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics. But before we get into that, Levi, could you introduce yourself to everyone?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Levi. I work as a content strategist. More specifically, I help people with the intricacies of building audiences on social media. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too, content
Mhm.
strategist, because that's a cool job.
Yeah.
But before we get into the nitty gritty of life and all the things, my first question to you actually is how are you really? And it's not necessarily just like the I'm good answer. If that is your answer, then that's fair. But how are you really? Is it really good?
I'm
Is it
fantastic.
okay?
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I of course, everyone's going to have stuff that they struggle with or problems, but I don't feel like I have the right to complain. So I am doing fantastic.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Is there a particular reason why you're fantastic, or is just life good and that's it is what it is?
There are more opportunities than I can take advantage of, and they are all good opportunities. And I see myself working, progressing, let's say, towards the goals that I have. And so, in those ways, life to me is fantastic.
Okay, congrats to you. I don't know what those opportunities are, but I love it for you. And I hope you're successful in all of those ventures.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned being a content strategist. What does that mean exactly? And what does that involve? Like, what does your day to day look like?
Right. Yeah, that it can mean a lot of different things depending on what you want, right? And so it could mean anything from sitting down with someone and giving them a 15-minute pep talk, like, hey, get out there, create some content, right? To sitting down, writing out a strategy for somebody to create content over the next couple of weeks or months or however long, right? But generally, what my work usually revolves around is just helping people get solid on the message that they want to share, helping them package it well, and then experimenting with ideas and with formats and things like that so that we can come across something they can use to get their message out even farther.
Okay, that's funny because your message is to help other people find their message.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you how did you get into that? Like, how did you fall into the? Was it that you were already doing that for friends? Was that something you always wanted to do? Because I'm sure like you could take this talent and apply it to your own just content creation, and you could have just used those skills to build your platform, but you're using it to educate people on how to do it for themselves.
Mhm.
Why?
So I'll explain kind of my origin story, right? I remember in 2006, 17 was when I started creating TikToks. I remember downloading TikTok. I posted one TikTok, and that TikTok went viral. And I was sitting there in my classroom after I posted a TikTok while the lecturer was giving a lecture, and I thought, I made the TikTok of him. I threw some sound on it with my AirPod, and I put some text on it. It went viral, right? So I'm thinking to myself, there is some sort of disproportionate attention here. And if we can take advantage of that, if we know how to tap into it, it's available for everyone. So let's see, if we know how to take advantage of that, we can use that to change people's lives. So that's when I started posting content, creating content. I created, I've tested a lot of different locations. I found myself creating content at Home Depot. And so I grew an account working at Home Depot. I was a tool rental specialist, or more like a tool rental tech, right? So I would sit in the back and clean the tools that came in, take some tools kind of apart, clean them up, and then so since none of the managers knew really how to operate tool rental or what went on there, they didn't really care what people were doing. I'm not going to say that they didn't care, but they were a lot less micromanaging, right? Because they couldn't pull me from that section to go help somebody with the forklift or be a cashier or something, because I'm the only one who knows all of the tools and how to operate the rental. So I get there at 5 o'clock in the morning, open up shop, make sure everything's running, and make TikToks, right?
Okay.
I would do that until people arrived, and I do that late at night. Nobody was there. I was just there, so I could. And so that's kind of how I started. As far as how I got to where I was now, I'd created another TikTok account, right? So I grew that first one to around 80,000 followers. I created another TikTok account around mindset, motivation, that sort of thing. I was like, I want to see if because I thought to myself, oh, I know how to make TikTok accounts, right? I've grown TikTok, I have TikTok account. I'm like, do I really know? And so I decided to make another account. I'm like, I'm gonna have this this set of constraints. I'm going to make it about motivation, mindset, and I'm going to post. So those were the constraints I had. I had 14,000 followers in a week, right? And so I kept growing that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun, right? I kept growing that account. And then during that time too, I was consuming a lot of YouTube University entrepreneurship stuff, people talking about how they make money online, and stumbled across one guy, sat down and had a talk with him. He's like, "Yeah, TikTok, do TikTok consulting. People want it." I'm like, yeah, of course. So I started posting. I started another, I've done some client work too. So this is about the account that I've had so far, or I've posted and created on, grown, I should say. And so I started yet another account, teaching people how to create content, and started getting some clients there. So that's my
Wow.
story.
So you've essentially cracked the secret to viral content, is what I'm hearing, or
No,
growing pages, growing audience.
yeah, that'd be a bit more like it, right? Yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah, there's no secrets anywhere, right? Like, a question for you: if I offer dollars to have a viral video inside of a certain niche by the end of next week, would you be able to do it?
I would be able to try. That I know.
Would you be?
To
Would you
do
not?
it, execute it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't say I can't guarantee that, so probably not.
yeah. But that sort of motivation kind of it informs the steps that we know we should take, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of different people are there's a lot of things you can do, but going viral, posting content, a lot of it's a numbers game, and a lot of it's just being aware of what's doing well and trying to mix some of that into your own content.
I like how you said that there isn't really a secret to that, because a lot of the times you'll see TikToks and videos that are like, this is the secret to getting to 100 million people. And I feel like it creates this aura of mystery to all of the average content creators out there who are under maybe 100,000 followers, who are like, I just haven't cracked this secret that they're talking about.
Oh my
So
god.
I like that you mentioned that.
No.
For content creator, what do you recommend for them if they want to grow? Yeah, like how do they grow? And I know it's probably multifaceted and depends on the client and depends on the niche and things like that.
Right.
But if there was like 2 to 3 things that across the board most niches require, I know consistency is a big one. I've seen that as well. Like if you post 3 times a day, even if some of them don't perform well, just the action
Yeah.
of putting it out ends up pushing you forward. But is that something you would say helps grow communities online, or not really?
Yeah, that's a large question.
I know.
I will start. I'll start by saying, let's imagine that the viral video is the fish. Okay,
Okay.
viral video is a fish. Imagine that you want to grow. Maybe going viral is a part of it, definitely, right? But you don't just want fish. You don't just want to know how to fish. You want to know how to build fishing rods.
Hmm.
Okay. And so a lot of people, when they approach, they're just looking for fish immediately. I want this fish. But you want a lifestyle that involves you going fishing all the time so that you always have fish. And this is what a lot of content creators don't think about. They end up getting really burnt out. They'll be, creating content, and maybe they succeeded in going viral. They'll do it over and over and over again. They'll find that their virality isn't necessarily paying the bills, or it's not in line with what they actually want to achieve for their life. The first thing that I do, that when I work with people, is just make sure we're creating content in a way that is sustainable, way that we can do it for the long term, a way that you're not going to get burnt out because you're forcing something. No, it's integrated. It's things that you believe. It's simply you're engaging in self growth, let's say self development, in terms of coming forward with your ideas, being able to defend your ideas, but you're not doing anything unnatural or putting on a mask or bearing a burden that is going to break your back over time. So I'd say the first thing is having a content strategy, or knowing how to create content that's in line with who you are, what you believe, and the goals you want to achieve, right? The next thing after that is having a system for making your content better, making everything better, right? And I know that's really wide, and I said that on purpose, right? It kind of attacks everything, right? That's like the silver bullet. I'd like to make everything better, right? But that's kind of the way it is. I tell people, when you approach content, what's the number one thing that bothers you about your content? Okay, what's a solution to that? Like, for example, for some people, I'm not getting any views. Why does that bother you? And then you start digging in, and maybe they feel like they need views, because if they're not getting views, then that means that their content isn't correct, right? And that's a misconception. Maybe they want views because they want more people to know what they're doing and they want more attention, want to be able to help more people. And we say, okay, this is how you get more views, right? Maybe I don't like the fact that my content's not engaging. Maybe I don't like the fact that, I'm not in my content ideas. It's just like an idea that I pulled from some other creator. So those are the things that we attack. So this is something that I try to help people do is what bothers you about your content? How would you like to see your content improve? How can you work towards that? And when we do that and we're coupling it with a long-term strategy, the only possible outcome is to be successful.
Wow. Okay. That resonate. Okay, what is had like multiple point as you were mentioning that multiple questions for you. One of them being, how do you create, and I know that this would be really helpful for a lot of my friends who are content creators, and a lot of them, at least six of them recently told me what you just described. They're feeling burnt out, and I feel like it's because you're trying to play that game of trying to understand, like, how do I, become successful. And when things aren't working with you, whether it's your likes aren't where you want them to be, the views aren't where you want them to be, you get frustrated. How do you create sustainable content? Like, I know you said building that into your everyday life. How, like, I know that's something you'd probably do more with a client directly one on one, but what advice would you give to someone in terms of trying to build a sustainable content plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually made a video on this earlier today. And so
So watch
so
this
the
video, everyone. Go back.
go watch my video. All right. No, the number one thing that I try to have people do is just switch your perspective on content. The perspective a lot of people have again is fish, right? And I want fish is in I want a result. It's like I want happiness. I want to live a happy life, right? And if you take that approach to life, you're not going to go to your job because your job doesn't make you happy, right? You're not going to do something that doesn't make you happy if that's what you're predicating things on. You're not going to post a video idea if it's not going to make you go viral, right? Anyways, where was I? The first thing is shifting the mentality, right? So we're thinking in terms of not necessarily what can I get out of it, but what can I provide. More specifically, we want to provide some sort of transformation for people intentionally, right? Even entertainment channels, they're providing a transformation intentionally, or maybe not, right? They're just wasting your time, but they are being the best at entertaining you for that slot of time in a certain way. And there are specific emotions that go along with the entertainment that they want to give you. If I'm doing if I'm creating content on TikTok, right, I have to think, what's my objective? I want to transform people into the type of people who can put their hands to any social media platform and grow an audience and do it where it's not as painful as it has to be, right? So we're looking at content from this mission perspective. And once you do that, because I honestly believe transforming other people is the highest thing to do. And it's possibly the thing that feels the most good, believe it or not, helping other people. Once we start doing that and approaching our content from that perspective, all of the other, let's say, all of the detritus in terms of my content's not doing that or my content's not doing this, it goes away. And you're able to focus only on how effective your content is. So the first thing that I try to do is affect that mentality shift. We're not just creating content for ourselves, we're creating content that we believe in. Yes, we're creating content that reflects our values and our goals, but we're also creating content because we're in service to a certain group of people. All right. So that's the first thing. The next thing that I have people do, the next thing that I recommend is just have a list of fleshed out whys. So why do you want to create content? Why? Right? Why do I want to create content? I want more people to my business. Why do you want more people to your business? Why is it better for your business to exist than it is to not exist, right? Why are you even working towards this anyways? And we go down this let's say you could go down this positively with another person, but you could go down the negative path with yourself. Own the shadow that you have, right? Why am I creating content? I feel like I want to be accepted. I'm creating content because I was people made fun of me as a kid and I want to be that guy, right? I'm creating content because I'm inspired by people and I want to be popular. Like a small part of me wants to be popular, right? So we own these things and we know that this is why we're creating content. We're not hiding from these things that will just these dragons under the carpet, let's say, that will feast on the crumbs and grow so big to where we can't defeat them. No, we bring them out into the light, at least in your mind, right? I don't like to dig around in people's insecurities, but that's kind of what we do. Is just try and have a mind for that, so that we know holistically why we're approaching content, and we won't have these little nagging voices in the back of our heads later on. And then the last thing that I do is I like to encourage people to do as an exercise. Just rant to your camera every single day and save it as a draft. That it helps so much, right? Like, what are you feeling right now? Talk about it. Talk about it to your camera. Watch it over again and ask yourself what you like, what you don't like, what that recording tells you about yourself, your position, and where you're at. You'll gain so much information. It's absolutely mind blowing. So that's my lengthy response to your question.
That was really good. Wow. Okay. Everyone who's listening to this episode later, please take notes. We're just at the beginning of it. But I
Oh my,
appreciate it, especially for the first point that you made, how you said that I guess the best content is content that is serving people in some way. And that could be
mhm.
serving them in a way of entertaining them. That could be serving them and educating them. That could be serving them and motivating them, but understanding how you're serving them. Because I think
Yeah,
that's something that maybe people might skip a step and you jump into creating content, but what is the why? Like why is the
right,
person who's watching it, the audience that you're trying to reach, impacted by this instead of just swiping
right.
up, scrolling up? Okay.
Yeah. And if I could add to that as well, the reason social media platforms are built on other people liking our content, right? They're just built on that. We want other people to like our content. And so we have to, at heart, give them something that will be worth their attention.
I know you encourage people to record a little bit every day and save it to your drafts. What about posting those quote unquote drafts? Because I have seen a trend of that I'm like the day in the life of a non-aesthetic person and things like that. And that was kind of a question I had for you in general for content creators. Should they be trying to kind of present, even if it's their everyday life, like almost a curated version versus like truly everyday life? Like you have a rant one day and it's a bad day, the next day it's a good day. Because I know that there's like kind of pros and cons in that, being that real and raw with people. Social media likes it and doesn't like it at the same time. Like we do all
Right.
kind of gravitate towards liking the curated
Yeah.
content. So what is your advice on that and like the keeping authenticity in that?
Depends on what you want. It's a really hard question. And the answer to that question, most of the time, people can really only sense instead of state, right? Which is why it's incredibly important to know the whys behind what you do. You'll get more clarity on these sorts of things, right? But no, that the answer to that question, should I be raw? Should I be curated? Depends on what you want, right? The raw is really great for if you want to establish connections with people, if you want to show people into your life and get people to believe in you as an individual, as a personality, right? Build a really tight audience, right? The curated is necessary in order to actually take advantage of the way the algorithms work, right? And so there's a balance that's to be had for everybody. If you just posted raw content all the time, nobody would like it. Maybe a couple people would, right? That'd be like me going on and ranting my deepest, darkest insecurities on TikTok. Nobody cares about that, right? But on the other hand, if you only just post curated, and I might have a lot of fun doing that too, right? But nobody's really going to care. So why would I post that on TikTok, right? But on the other hand, if we go hyper curated, people could like it, people could interact with it, and maybe the nature of my content, like Mr. Beast, is hyper curated, but maybe I'm at arm's length away from my content, right? And so it really depends on what we want, what we sense our future is going to be with the content, and just having a flexible balance and knowing I'm feeling this way about my content. I got to shift a little this way. I feel like I'm showing too much. I'm going to be a little more curated. I feel like I'm cold. I'm not telling people enough. It's not resonating. I got to be a little bit more vulnerable, right? So it's a spectrum.
Okay, I feel like that's really good advice, not only to future listeners, but to myself too, because that is something that in my content creation journey, have also been navigating. Like my content performed really well a few years ago, but it was curated.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed
Yep.
that curated content, and also my audience enjoyed it too. But now I'm in a
Yep.
different place and stage in my life, and making that type of content is a lot more difficult than it was maybe 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And that has created like an internal existential question of, do I keep trying to make curated content, but I'm having a difficult time with it? Do I do raw content, but it seems like it contradicts the content that I made a few years ago? Also, I see somebody has joined us. Hello, Cyper Single. I saw you asked about the flat earth. That is a different episode, but good question. And
Earth, it's a CD, so it's round, but it's flat.
it's
Uh,
you said a channel hack is to react to other.
that's crazy.
Where did
That's that's a good idea, and that could go right into like duetting and stitching on TikTok. Real great thing to do.
okay? I don't know what happened. It was showing me the chat and then it disappeared.
Hmm.
Okay, sounds like that is good wisdom. Channel hacking. So for stitching, what do you? How do you think that would be beneficial? Cyper singles hack, channel hack.
I mean, it's good because it puts you kind of in the same circles as certain creators. It's like you putting yourself there in terms of like the way your audience and people will view you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like stitching for that reason. Duetting and stitching, it's a great way for you to get on people's radar, right? So if you have a favorite creator and maybe you stitch one of their videos, maybe they see it, maybe they follow you, maybe they don't, maybe it's a connection, right? But it's all around a good thing to do.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Keeping that in mind. So this mindset that you've developed about content creation, I have to ask, who influenced you to get to this point, or did you just kind of like identify this over time by the different pages that you've grown, or like did you watch certain content creators, or not even necessarily creators but just other people in other industries who influenced you to understand the way that, because it's kind of psychology, it's kind of
Yeah,
business, it's kind of
yeah.
sociology at the same time, so where did that come from?
Yeah, so I used to watch a lot of psychology content on YouTube, just lectures and things like that, just knowing how people react. Because at heart, let's say that everything is about psychology in some sense, right? So I used to enjoy watching that a lot. In terms of business content, one guy that I would watch that really inspired me to just do better is Biaheza. He makes the YouTube content, and so his content was always fun. You know, he's more in the drop shipping space, but he's a good guy. You watch his content; he's real great. So I enjoyed watching his content quite a bit. Um, let me think about that for a minute as well. There's a couple other creators like Serge Guittari, who is really great in terms of informational.
Mhm.
He's smaller. He's got like 4,000. Makes a lot of money, but he puts information out like crazy, like technical information, implementable information that if you're trying to build a business online, it's just priceless. Charlie Morgan is another great guy. These are more like social media marketing agency gurus, I would say, but they're really great in terms of kind of pulling back the curtain and showing you a bit more about what is it about what it's like to actually be operating in the way you would like.
Okay, those are some great recommendations. I will actually look into some of those pages as well. And it sounds like you kind of indirectly debunked another common content creator myth about being small and not being able to make money. I know you like briefly mentioned that, but I know a lot of people worry about that or feel like you have to cross 10K in order to make a decent amount of money with brand deals and things like that, or even sponsorships or ads. So, what would your comment be to that, to somebody who feels that way?
Yeah. So, you can't eat views and you can't eat followers. Trust me, I've tried. But bottom line, right? I'll talk to some creators who are broke and who have millions of followers because they don't have any clarity on what they want to do, and so they're paralyzed, right? And I would also say, there are a lot of different ways to monetize. There's a lot of different ways to make money on social media. If you're just trying to rely on, let's say, on views, or let's say the creativity program, the creator fund, or something like that, if you're just trying to rely on that and you really need the views, then yeah. But that's most people's, let's say, conception of social media. YouTube will pay me money if I get so many views, and they will. But that's not actually taking advantage of the full scope, the power of content, right? If we look at what content does, it connects us to other people and it frames us in whatever way we would like to be framed in order for us to influence them, let's say, to take the maximum action or to change their perspective in a certain way. If you can do that effectively, you can, like, if you can get somebody to watch one of your videos from beginning to end, you can get them to buy something, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the perspective that I take. It's people think of money as a barrier, and it's just simply not the case, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to monetize. I've known some creators on TikTok to have 500 followers, and they were able to pick up a couple high ticket clients from those followers, and they're making $15,000 a month, right? I've,
Oh
I've
my
known some,
gosh.
some people who, yeah, there's just so many different ways to do it. Like if you're obsessed, you will know these ways. You'll know the best possible things to do. And there's people out there just spreading this, these news, let's say, or the information about how you can monetize in so many different ways, right? And so, like, I personally run a high ticket coaching program, and I recommend people if they have smaller followings. I recommend they do the same thing. I would like to attack another misconception too that
Go
people
for it.
have. They think the best way to make money on social media is to sell a digital product or sell some sort of stand store product or something like that. And I always try to encourage people to develop a high ticket offer, because if you are trying to make, let's say, a livable wage over the course of the next 10 or 20 years, you're going to be depending on views for low ticket products. And as we've seen on TikTok and on all sorts of other platforms, views are incredibly volatile, right? Some creators will have millions and they'll be pulling, let's say, thousands, who have, like, let's say, thousands of followers, and they'll start blowing up real quick, right? And so it's not necessarily like once you have it, unless you're an incredibly strong creator in some cases, where some of the more popular ones where they could do anything on a video and it would still blow up. If you're not up there, then depending on just views and low ticket products, it's a risky thing to do. So I always encourage people, try to take the attention from the platform, try to get it off of the platform, try to get it somewhere, build an email list, build a community, right? And try some sort of high ticket offering. Worst case scenario, nobody buys it, right? Best case scenario, you don't know.
I'm really glad that you addressed that misconception because, again, I'm connected with quite a bit of content creators, particularly Black content creators, because of a program that I was involved in. And a lot of us still keep in touch and we'll talk to each other and kind of give advice about, this is a new grant or this is a new strategy I've seen or this is like a change, YouTube changing its
Yeah.
monetization rules and things like that. But I had heard one of them mention developing, I think it was like a digital journal or something like that. And she said she only maybe sold one of them or two of
Yeah.
them. And then after that, nothing really happened. I know somebody else who was trying to get me to buy like a social media calendar. And I've seen the social media calendar digital ebook thing like at least 100 times now. So I'm really glad that you addressed that misconception because I think we saw like in the 2000 to 2015 so many people making so much money from digital products that it feels like, oh, if I just make, a virtual journal, then everyone will want it and I can just talk about it constantly. Even if you do have really engaging content, like you said, views are really volatile. So it could change really fast. And then that is influencing your, um, oh snap. I don't know what just happened. That is influencing your,
There we go.
sorry about that. I don't know what that was per se. But yes, thank you for addressing that misconception.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will appreciate that. I've definitely seen a lot of people having questions about that.
Mhm. One other thing that I would like to address in that area too. This is something that a philosopher, Nietzsche, said. He said things are worth what we pay for them, right? And so,
Mm,
in terms of judging worth, it is hard for us to judge worth outside of sacrifice. What would I have to sacrifice in order to get this, right? Maybe we can look at results, but generally we don't know what the results of watching somebody's TikTok will be. So we can say, how much did they sacrifice to make this TikTok, right? Anyways, um, in that way, right? When if you charge somebody $25 and they work with you for $25, you are worth $25 to them. You're a $25 product to them, and they will take $25 worth of action on the information that you told them, right? If you charge someone $2,500, they will listen to what you have to say, and they will actually do the things that is necessary for them to get the desired transformation you want them to achieve, right? And so that's another thing too. People don't want to charge high ticket because they're it's easier for people to buy lower ticket, let's say. And while it is true, you're limited in the amount of change you can make.
wow. Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up too. And I don't know if you saw the Payless's marketing research thing where
Yep.
they, I think, in
Yep.
account. Yeah, I feel like that's a really good example of what you just described. Like, it's really about how you feel or present your product, your content, even like if you want to be a luxury brand, there's really nothing that's stopping anyone from being luxury. The Payless shoes were presented as a luxury company, and they were talking about it like when they were interviewing people as if it was a luxury company. So yeah, you get what you pay for, but you also value you define what that value is as the owner of that business or the owner of that product. I'm
Mhm.
really glad you mentioned that. Okay. And I've also heard that free things don't people don't value them as much as you think they do. Like traditionally you'd think people would want a free X, Y, and Z, but they
Yeah.
actually care about it less because it's free as opposed to something that they know they had to make an investment in. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of the time too, like free things can work if it's some sort of exchange of value. Like it's clear, I'm going to get your email, I'm going to send you stuff. This is my return. Is it actually valuable? Right. But free things in general, yeah, like I'll look at the number of times that I've signed up for a lead magnet and the number of times I've read a lead magnet, and the number of times I've read a lead magnet is less.
interesting. That's super. And it like goes against what you would think people would do. Like if you're trying to design a product or something like that, you would think if I make it free, it'll be a great entry level place for people to understand who I am as a brand and then maybe want to pay for a higher ticket item. But I think what people are starting to understand, and it sounds like your clients who work with you are like understand in working with you, is that if you actually start at a high level offer, and kind of create strong content and have a value and a why and a mission behind your content, it is way more effective than trying to push, free things all the time or push just any content, like just you putting out rants every day. Like
Yeah, yeah.
intentional about everything.
And there is an ecosystem to be had, right? Like some people do lower ticket offers in order to get people to where they can be doing they can let's say afford a higher ticket offer, right? And some people they'll offer a lead magnet because it overcomes some sort of barrier, and it gets there. It's all good. It's all good. But what's not good is to just rely on one singular aspect of online business or digital marketing, and then let that and then wonder why it's not doing what we want it to do.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. I'm sure you get this not necessarily as a direct question a lot, but a lot of people who come to you asking about this
Hmm.
growth. How would you define growth? Because I feel like it is relative, of course, but I'm sure you have a lot of creators who come to you and they're like, I just want to grow. I want to grow the page. I want to grow I want to grow this. I want to grow my revenue. I want to grow everything, grow all the things. But
Hmm.
how do you as a content strategist define growth? Is it that you are getting more consistent views every time you put out a new piece of content? Is it that your engagement is steadily improving? Is it just the action of being consistent and not necessarily like what the views and the result that you're receiving is, but just the actions that you're taking? What is growth?
Yeah, I would say, is your content doing what you want it to do, and are you learning how to get your content to do what you want it to do? That to me is growth. Learning to
Okay.
get your learning how to make content that does what you want it to do, right? And so to me, it means that there's more than just getting views. There's more than just getting followers. You should have the basics for that down pretty much. And maybe if you have an eye on the market, you can know, oh, it'll probably take me around this much time if I was to start a new page to actually start getting some traction, right? But is your content converting people? Are people, let's say, signing up to your email list? Are they biting on your leads? Are you making a living with your content? Is your content doing what you want it to do? And so I think that good, effective content does what the creator intends for it to do. And this is everything from in terms of, let's say, communication to to the action of the audience after they watch the video. A lot of people, they when they approach a video, they can get a ton of factors right, but they can get a couple of them wrong. And with videos, it's true that there are certain factors that you can hit right for growth, and you can really grow, but maybe your communication isn't getting through, right? Maybe you're not communicating your mission. Maybe you're not getting people to believe in you in a way that you could if you were posting content that was a little richer, right? And so those are more constraints that you have to apply on your content. So to me, content growth is content proficiency.
Okay. That's nice too because it's not results based. Because I feel like when you play that hamster wheel game, and I am very guilty of playing that game with myself as well, when you play that game, it ends up unfulfilling. And then it ends up taking you down like a darker spiral where
Yeah.
your content isn't as rich as if you're focusing on it from a more mission or like an overall base
Mhm.
standpoint. So I like that perspective of defining your growth as a content creator by
Yeah.
doing what you want it to do and whatever that
Exactly.
means to you.
Yeah. If I wanted to if I wanted to get views, if I wanted to go viral, I would just download a different viral video, post it on another account, and tag the original video, and boom, I've gone viral, right? But we actually have requirements, right? And so the only requirement isn't for let's say growth or getting better improvement is not going viral.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Thank you for that. I know we're talking about this generally in terms of the advice that you're giving to
Mhm.
either your clients or to content creators in general. But
Yeah.
for you personally, when do you feel like you've grown the most in your life and what do you feel like caused that growth? And that could be relative to business, it could also be personal growth.
Yeah. So I would say this is probably sometime last year. And there's you kind of have like a entrepreneur and then you have an entrepreneur, and everybody has a tiny little bit of entrepreneur in them, right? So the guy who's not implementing stuff, right? Everyone has a tiny bit, right? But I'd
Yeah.
say the most growth I did was when I was just straight up ruthlessly consuming content and implementing. And the thing that was great about this is that I would be watching content, and there was a point where I'd just be watching content. Do I do this? Do I do this? How do I do this? And then there would be a point where I was just ruthlessly implementing stuff. So I learned something. You can see it in my content the next day. I have that funnel set up, right? I have this thing inside of my program. I've made this lead magnet. I've made this sheet, right? And so it's almost like increasing the cycle time a lot faster. So the most growth that I've gone through would probably be during that period where I went from looking at what I could do to just trying throwing everything at the wall. So
Okay, that's amazing. And it sounds like it was able to be effective for you since you were able to grow the pages that you did. Because growing a following of that size for any of the pages that you've done is definitely not an easy feat for anyone. So that's fantastic. Do you feel like that period of ruthlessly implementing the things that you were learning challenged your personal growth? Because I know personal development is intertwined with your professional development. Like where your headspace is at and the energy that you're giving your personal growth will influence your professional growth. So do you feel like there was lessons that you learned like parallel to that that were influencing you personally that were also making it so that that ruthless implementation was being effective for you?
absolutely, yeah. So I is this a work life balance question?
Kind of, basically.
Oh no, yeah, yeah.
Basically.
So I would take that question to be like a work life base, and I would say I'm still figuring out what work life balance means, right? So I feel like when I worked at Home Depot, of course I want to have work life balance, right? But doing what I do now, it seems as though the only indicators that I'm getting from, let's say, myself, the gut feelings that I have and the things that I see, isn't that I need to be more balanced or I need to take more time off. It's more like I need to, you could be doing better. You need to do more. You need to implement faster, more cycle times, right? Because I'm really excited about it. Like I'm obsessed with it, right? And so, in terms of, did that period really have an effect on my personal life? I would say it's integrated, right? It's too it was me and my professional life is me and my personal life, right? So the changes I saw in my professional, let's say, life, they're the same ones that I would have seen in my personal.
Okay, that makes total sense. Where does like all of this hunger and motivation come from in the morning? Like is it just that it is an exciting mental puzzle for you to solve? Is are you driven by the success that you're developing or the money that comes from it or the relationships that you're building as you're going through this process? Like where does that intrinsic motivation start?
Yes, yes, that's my answer, right? Yes to all of those things.
Okay.
There are so many. I from what I've learned at least, or the limited, let's say, gleanings that I've done on through content about psychology, I've learned that humans, we gain dopamine when we see ourselves moving towards some sort of goal, right? And we've set a goal maybe, and we're getting there. We're really close. We're on the way, and we see ourselves progressing, right? That really helps me. I like that a lot, right? Um, but yeah, just looking at, let's say, the infinity of opportunity that is available in terms of just the topics that I can talk about and the way I can frame them, right? That alone is exciting. But you start tying other things into it, right? Like you have people in the comments who are talking about how helpful it is or how accurate, how much it resonates, right? You have clients you work with who see results that aren't just growth based, but like I realized this about content and it's unlocked a whole new field for me, right? Or a client who told me that he realized something about his content that made him, he literally could not sleep at night because he was like, I can make content like this and I've been doing it like this all of this time, right? And a lot of these the the things that motivate me, it's all of it. I love it. I love it all. So there are parts that are discouraging, right? When you have a fail
Hmm.
or when something doesn't do what you want it to do, there's always going to be some sort of failure, right? But the failures themselves are opportunities because it's like, hey, something was wrong here, fix it now, and you won't have to fix it later. And you're like, okay, great, fantastic, right? So mini failures are a great thing to look for, right? Because the more you can identify the micro failures, the more you avoid the larger ones. So, but in answer to your question, where does it all come from? Yeah, that it's I would say too that the content that I've consumed and the people whose content that I've consumed and the people who I let influence my life and the thoughts that I have, that has an incredible bearing, right? Just even having one other person that you stay in semi constant contact with who is doing the same thing, it's huge. It's huge. So
Okay, that's awesome. I can feel your excitement as you're talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
And I understand where it comes from. I like how you described it as like considering the infinity of opportunities
Mhm.
that are just available to you when you're pursuing the thing that you're interested in, when that journey itself, like the failures, the successes, all of it.
Yep. Yep. It's all a map. It's a map. It's like this is how to
Mm,
get to where you want to go.
okay, that's awesome. I love it for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you feel like this perspective that you had right now is that similar to what you kind of had as a child, or is this kind of new that came into adulthood? I know that's we're getting into personal questions.
Good, great question, actually. I'd say that it's a combination of both, right? Like
Okay.
at least my experience as a child, you live and you see things and things are obvious to you, right? And there are things that maybe pop out at you, right? And as you grow older, the world kind of grows grayer in some sense, right? And things aren't as exciting, and it's losing its magic, right? But every so often, you can come across something, and it gives you the same feeling, it gives you the same, let's say, intuition, and you had intuition towards it you had when you were a child, and it's like, hey, there's a spark of what was back there in this if you choose to pursue it. That would be my answer.
Okay. I definitely, I really empathize with that feeling because I've, as you know, becoming an adult,
Hmm.
I've heard and seen a lot of people and myself feel it too, like that grayness that you described. And honestly, that grayness to me is terrifying. I don't
Yep.
really ever want to lose that like sense of wonder and sense of exploration and like the vibrancy of life that you see when you're a child and everything's so new, because as adults things are still new, but I do think like kind of you kind of brushed over that, but life will make you feel jaded about certain things, or it'll just like it'll make it seem less fun, less glitz and glamour, as opposed to when you're a child and you're like everything that's happening, good or bad, just feels so impactful. By the time you reach like 25, 26, you're like, I've seen this already. The first crush versus like your 27-year-old boyfriend. You're like, okay, well, first crush, it's like overwhelming, it's consuming. And there's a part of that that I feel like we should always keep within reason, of course, because it can take you down that path. Do you feel like it's the same? Oh, it might have did a thing. internet is not. I don't know what happened. Reload. Okay. Well, Levi has left, but he will return. And in the meantime, to the one person, I'm going to assume you are. Oh, no, he's back.
Am I back?
Yes.
I'm not sure what happened.
It really could be the internet. And if that is the case, I apologize. Spectrum is cruel. Before you got cut out, I was asking if you felt like you had a similar perspective about your mental health relative to now, because I'm sure this like ruthless implementation takes a lot of energy. And while it's both fun, like you mentioned, there's discouraging aspects of the process, any failures or things not working out the way that you wanted to.
Mhm.
So, do you feel like this, I guess, adaptability in term is something that evolved with your content creating?
But I would absolutely. Am I gone again? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but not see you.
That's not good.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Now it's
Awesome.
better.
Awesome. So, sorry, you talked about ruthless implementation, mental health, and then you said adaptability.
Yes. Do you feel like this adaptability in terms of, I guess, your mindset has evolved with your content creation? Like, I'm sure that this, as a child per se, you didn't necessarily have that. I mean, maybe you did the same level of hunger and desire for, pursuing your opportunities. I mean, maybe, but it's different as an
Yeah.
adult, you
Yeah.
know?
I would absolutely say that it changes as you progress. It changes with the people around you, changes with the content you consume, and it changes with the things that you see, right? As far as ruthlessly implementing, being tiring, let's say, balancing out the mental health. To me, it's almost like, say you're driving down the freeway and you have your hands on the wheel right here and you're going to keep it straight and you see the road curve. And if you believe in your car, if you believe that the road is true, you believe in your vision, you're going to turn the wheel with no strain on your mental health, because that's just the way things work, right? And it's the same thing, right? Like if I look at, if something's clearly not right, let's say for example somebody says, hey, you need to add this and these are the reasons why, right? And I go through the reasons why I haven't and the reasons why I should, benefits and disadvantages, let's say, then it's clear, right? It's just like, why wouldn't I do this? Why wouldn't I take the exit to the city where I want to go? It's like somebody's providing you with a map of instructions. Are you going to choose to believe in the map and the instructions and take their advice, or are you going to doubt them and continue blindly, let's say? So I would say that I would say a big part of it too is just information you can trust, information you believe is applicable to you, which is why a lot of the time it sometimes takes a coach or some sort of leader, consultant, something like that to come to you, say, hey, this is probably what you should do. Yeah, I was there. I got you. You're good. Keep going.
So is that kind of what you do a little bit for your clients as well, is both like strategize with them, but also coach them in
Hmm.
their content development? Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
that's awesome. So as a coach slash strategist, what advice do you have for someone that is ready to start personally growing or professionally growing, but has no idea where to start?
Find the thickest mud you can jump into and start swimming through it. That's what I would say. Find the darkest part of the forest, like the hardest thing to do.
Okay.
Oh my, find something that will guarantee you to fail and go do that, right? And you'll have a taste of what it's like. And then if you can keep doing that over and over and over and just get really good at wading through mud, get really good at tasting stuff that you didn't like, but knowing exactly what it's telling you, then you will have to be successful. I believe it was Elon Musk who said the most important quality in any entrepreneur is resilience. And I have found that to be so true, right? Like, are you going to get up and do it? Are you going to do it today? Are you going to do it the day after that? You haven't seen any results for a month. Are you going to keep going? You haven't seen any results for a year and a half, right? Maybe you're 2 years in and you're not making any money. Are you going to keep going, right? Are you going to throw in the towel, right? So if people want to get started with content, the first thing I'd say it's just start and do something. It's putting out a bad piece of content is infinitely better than putting out no content. The same way that a 1 on a grade is infinitely better than a 0, right? There's potential for 100. There's potential for a 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, right? But getting a 1 is much better than getting a 0, right? And so it's the same thing to me with content. People, the pursuit of, let's say, perfection, it's something you can only approach it as you deal with the adversity that comes with it.
That was amazing. That also very deeply resonated for me personally as well. I think the metaphor of kind of associating content with like taking a test and a 1 being better than a 0. I had never thought about it before, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
You just put something out, and then from that you can either, you know, win, quote unquote, and have a viral piece of content or people engage with it a lot, or you fail, but then that failure gives you the opportunity to assess and be like, well, does this content align with my mission? Was it actually serving the audience that I'm trying to reach right now, or not really? So I like that, and that is very encouraging to me, and I'm sure to everyone else who will listen to this episode afterwards. If you're struggling with your content right now, just keep going, keep
Yes.
trying.
Keep
That's all
going.
you do.
Yes. Like you have no other, like, do you have any better thing to do? Right. Are you gonna quit and go watch, I don't know, Netflix or something? No, make your content.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to share this episode with that group chat of creators that I'm in, because I think a lot of the points that you've kind of pointed out, particularly about growth, are things that will very deeply resonate with them, and maybe also debunk some of their self-limiting beliefs about why their content isn't taking them to the places that they wanted to
Yeah.
take them. Okay, nice. Well, those are the questions I had for you about growth. I
Uh-huh.
have my final 3 questions. We've come to the beginning of the end of our
Oh
episode
boy.
today. But this has been a really fun one. Like, this is really cool. So, again, as we go into these final 3 questions, thank you for your time today. I appreciate and the wisdom that you've shared with all of the people who will hear this afterwards, your audience, my audience, future listeners. It was
Mhm.
really valuable, and you definitely served all of us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I am glad to be here. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
tell.
I can feel your excitement for sure. And I love that. I love that. I think you kind of answered this question in the beginning without realizing it, but I had a question for you in terms of self discovery. What is giving you hope right now? But at the very beginning of the episode, you kind of highlighted that a little bit.
Yeah.
So you could re answer it, but I kind of already have an idea of what
Yeah.
that would be.
What's giving me hope right now? Everything. Unlimited opportunity, right? Like unlimited opportunity means that it's on me if I fail, yes. But it also means that as long as I'm not dead, I get to keep trying. That gives me hope.
Dang. See, and your excitement, like the joy, and I feel like there's, depending on your perspective, people might take that negatively, and and they might. I feel like it's really about the tone and that you decide to look at life's perspective, because
Yeah.
that could also be very discouraging to people. They could be like, "Oh my gosh, I have to keep trying," but you are very clearly excited to keep exploring and keep trying and keep
Yeah. Well,
growing.
I get to be excited. I can choose to be excited. So why not?
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
Mhm.
For yourself, and maybe that's also related to content, and it might be watching a piece of content, it might be watching a movie or listening to somebody's interview, but when was the last time that you felt deeply inspired, and why?
Oh
I
my
know that's a
gosh.
heavy question. Everyone always gets stumped at that
Oh
question.
gosh. Oh my. Um, man, that's good. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
When did I last feel deeply inspired? That's easy. I just said it was hard, right? I was on call with a gentleman that I've been working with for the past 2 months. I want to say like 2 hours before I came on this call, I was talking to him, and he was so visibly excited about the progress that he's made in terms of his own content. He went from like, 100 followers to around 8,000 followers, and he's been getting leads and that sort of thing too
Oh my
in the
God.
past like month and a half, right? And so he was visibly excited about it, right? But that was so inspiring to me because I was like, yes, it worked. My stuff works. His effort worked, and it's all doing what he wants it. What he wants it to do. So now there's people who are getting in touch with him who want fitness coaching, right? And I'm like, yes, this whole thing works. And he was so excited because not only does he have viral videos, and he has people who are interested in working with him, and a format that he can use that's getting views, but he knows what it takes to do. So he said he made a game out of it himself. And this made me this like I was like, yes. He said he made a game out of it himself. And he said he is trying to see if he can go viral, grow on Instagram without my help, right? He gamified it, right? And so I was like, yes, that's what we want, right? And so he knows exactly what it'll take on that platform. I told him, you can do that anywhere. You can go on YouTube, take the same process you applied to TikTok, take it to YouTube, take it to Instagram, Facebook Reels, wherever you want to build an audience. That's how it's done, right? And just the amount of excitement he brought to the call and seeing his perspective on the growth that he'd made and the amount of value he'd received out of it, that was inspiring for me to no end.
Well, congratulations to your client and to him and for his clients.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. And
Thank
that
you.
is
I didn't.
not easy.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make that a client story, but that made me really happy. That's what it was. So
No, I totally understand that though, especially like running a business. Like content creating is its own form of business, but really having your own like other type of business, whether that's like coaching, whether that's owning a beauty brand, a clothing brand, there is a totally different feeling when you feel like whatever you're producing, selling, service or product works or actually is serving people or your audience actually likes it. Like you see somebody wearing the clothes from your clothing brand, you're like, I did that. I created this brand. And for you as a coach, I'm sure that every time a client is successful, that is also an example of your success by helping them be successful in their own right. So I
yeah,
definitely understand. And congrats to both of you.
thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. I actually had, as you said that, had a question for you. That's not my last question,
Go
but
ahead.
I asked that
Yeah,
before.
go ahead.
As a content strategist, this is probably the final debunk of today. Do you feel like any platform is dying right now? Because there's a lot of conversation about that, Twitter versus Threads, Instagram and TikTok. Like, is Instagram going to die off and like Vine did and stuff like that? From your perspective,
I I think that these let's say these opinions, they they reflect very heavily on the ability of the human to weigh in on everything, right? So
fair
I don't
enough.
think anybody has any data that a certain platform will be dead. There's no proof of anything, right? And so my personal thought is there is a trend of there's a trend of attention, right? Maybe the trend of attention is in short form content. Maybe it's somewhere there are people using different social media platforms. And as far as people are going to be using social media platforms, there will be opportunity for content creators. That's my approach to TikTok's going to get banned even, right? Or is Threads dying, or is Twitter dying, or whatever. Like my approach is just post content, right? You cannot control it, and
Hmm.
it's the same thing like with the stock market. Consistently investing always beats timing the market. If you just put your money in every single day and dollar cost average up or down, or wherever you want to go, right? Consistently investing, it always beats trying to time the market. And I think it's the same thing with content creation.
That makes total sense. I like that because it's also a more general way of thinking. Like, I feel like if you focus on one platform in particular, you almost indirectly pigeonhole yourself.
Yep.
And then if Twitter does die, like all the Vine creators, like some of them did adapt and they moved to Instagram and they were able to grow huge platforms on Instagram. And I think some of them who might have limited themselves mentally and been like, I was a Viner and now Vine is gone. What do I do? Where do
Right.
I go?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes total sense. All right. Well, I'm glad we debunked that myth because I know that that's a question I've been seeing a lot of people ask about that, and like
Mhm.
particularly Twitter versus Threads right now.
Post the same stuff on both. Like there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, then, my final question to you is how can I best support you, and how can listeners support you and your work?
It's a really, really powerful question. Not sure if I
That's
should
why I
answer
end with
it.
it.
I'd say the best thing is just keep creating content. Like that's the best way to support what I'm trying to do. If you want to watch my content, if you like what I have to say, that's fine. But I prefer that. I think the best way to support what I'm doing in the worldview that I have is to acknowledge that content is a powerful medium and to create content. That's what I would say.
Wow, you gave a powerful answer to a powerful question. Okay, that makes sense. I will. I don't know about everyone else, but I will.
Oh
I've
my.
received it. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I feel also inspired by this conversation as a content creator to keep moving forward and that there's more opportunity, abundance around us than you might think, no matter where you are in your content creator journey, whether you've been in it for 10 years and you're a really successful creator and now you've kind of plateaued a little bit because your content isn't getting engaged, whether you're at 100 followers, you're trying to get to 8,000
Mhm.
and grow your client base. Like, no matter where you are, I feel like the things that you've addressed today are things that anyone who wants to continue to utilize content creation as their medium for professional and personal growth, they can use it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. I'm so glad we finally did this because I
Yeah.
know we've been trying to do this
Yeah.
episode for like 3 months now. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful for this. Hopefully, maybe we'll do another one in the near future. We'll circle back in a few years and see how you're doing then.
That would be fantastic. And I honestly, I'm gonna check out some of the other episodes on your podcast. I would love to do that.
I appreciate that. I really do. Let me know if you enjoy one. Everyone, please let me know if you enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank
Podcasting is where it's at, right? Like
you.
this, it goes a long ways, and people really believe in podcast creators.
And I like the idea of talking to people and understanding real people's stories. That's where I guess the concept of unpacking the human experience comes in. Because
Yep.
like you said, watching a lot of psychology videos and things, like I just feel like you can learn from everyone. A homeless person, a million Elon Musk, like there's something we could learn from everyone. And I want to figure out what those things are.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate your support as well. Nice. Okay, yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you to the 1 to 3 people who popped in throughout this episode. And you will be able to hear this episode on Spotify in the very near future. It will also be on YouTube, and some of you are on Twitch. I know that as well. And it'll be there, I think, for 2 weeks. So if you want to hear it after the 2 weeks have passed, definitely check it out on Spotify.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. I had fun. It was exciting to do, and
Thank
I look forward to seeing more of your content.
Thank you, Levi. I will work on it. I promise. I promise. Hold me to it. Hold me to it. Truly. Like if you're like Sachi,
I
it's been
will.
6 months and I haven't seen anything from you.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right.